At www.spreaker.com, create your own radio show and find thousands of exclusive radio channels.
What is going on, everybody? UFC 158, St-Pierre versus Diaz prediction/preview, and I am so excited for this card, y'all. We finally get the fight that we've always wanted, that we've been wanting. We want to see Nick Diaz. We want to see George St-Pierre. And tonight, exclusively on pay-per-view, MMAnews1.weebly.com, alternativenews.weebly.com/UFC coverage. We're going to get it here. We're going to get it now. And this is actually a pretty good card. Now, let's take a look at the undercards. It's March 16th. It's in the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. George St-Pierre's backyard. Now, on the Facebook fights, I actually like, and I actually might check them out. I never check out Facebook fights. George Roop is fighting Ruben Duran. TJ Dillashaw is fighting Isel Tamira. And then Quinn Mahin versus Rick Story. Story, Dillashaw, and Roop, interesting fighters. They were up-and-comers, and then they kind of had a tip-off. On the FX prelim card, you got John Macadis versus Darren Krukashank. Never heard of those guys. Dan Miller's fighting Jordan Mean. Antonio Cavarez is fighting Darren Elkins. And then Patrick Cote versus Bobby Voker in the prelim main event. So you got Dan Miller, who was pretty low on that card. And then Patrick Cote. A lot of people think Cote is going to lose that fight, which I do. And then let's get into the main card, and this is where we're going to get into the predictions. The first two fights, I've heard of one guy, and that's Nick Ring. He's making his way up in the middleweight division. Pretty good fighter, very well-rounded. We kick it off with a lightweight fight. Colin Fletcher versus Mike Ricci, R-I-C-C-I. And we'll have coverage of this fight and every other fight with a new program on MMAnews1.weebly.com. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. I'm going to go with Colin. I've never heard of these two guys. Odd way to kick off the pay-per-view. Honestly, I would have Jake Ellenberger versus Nate Marquardt to kick it off. Because you got three fights that they're going to kill the crowd. By the time you get to that main event, those fans are going to be tired. Middleweight bout, Nick Ring versus Chris Camuz. Camuz? Yeah. I'm going to go with Nick Ring. And then here comes the three top fights that everybody is wanting. You got three welterweight fights. You got Jake Ellenberger taking on the returning Nate Marquardt. Nate won his last fight. Strikeforce, Jake Ellenberger. He's making his way back up again. This is a very, very comparison fight. These guys kind of fight the same. They can go to the ground. They can go to stand. I see it as an exchange match, kind of all over the place. I'm going to go with, on the upset, Jake Ellenberger with a split decision. Co-main event of the evening, and this fight should be awesome and definitely fight of the night. Two guys that love to stand, love to bang, and where you could get a knockout. Welterweight fight, Carlos Condit, the number-ranked 2 fighter in the world, or actually 3, versus Johnny Hendricks. Big Rig is back with that left hand, and I'm ready to see him fight. He knocked out Martin Kampmann. He's knocked out John Fitch in a sick, 12-second knockout. And these guys love to bang. Here's the problem. Everyone thinks since they're gonna stand up and go to war that they're gonna get a knockout. Most likely, those fights go the distance. Unfortunately, this should be fight of the night. And maybe Johnny Hendricks can land one of those lefts on his chin. And a lot of analysts, like on MMAfighting.com, which is a good site, you got Carlos Condit, who just came off of a title fight against George St-Pierre and got destroyed. Now, I'm a Carlos Condit fan, but you got also Johnny Hendricks, who keeps getting passed up left and right, and they never give a title shot. So let's say Carlos Condit pulls him out a split decision, unanimous decision. Where do they go from here if St-Pierre likely will win that fight? Do you do Condit and St-Pierre once again? Man, that's going to be trouble for a matchup. That Joe Silva's going to have. He put himself in a box, and he's hoping Johnny Hendricks gets it done. I'm actually going to go with Johnny Hendricks. I really do think he can put Carlos Condit out if he lands a good left hand. I do think it'll go to decision, unfortunately. I think all three of these fights will go to decision just the way they are. But watch out for Big Rig's his left hand, I'm going to go with Johnny Hendricks. And then the main event of the evening, a fight that I've wanted to see for a year now, and a lot of UFC fans have, and they're going to get their money's worth. Not exactly. George St-Pierre is going to go for his 18th win in the UFC. I believe it's his 8th title defense. Let me pull this up real quick. MMAnews1.com is where you can get your live play-by-play coverage, news, results, everything you know. And I cannot get this to pull up. Anyway, but here, let me see if I can pull his stats up. I apologize sincerely. I'll be tweeting with y'all later on in the show. Let's see if we can get it up. Anyway. Okay, so he won it against Matt Hughes. He won the title. I'm going to go with Matt Serra. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? 7 or 8 title defenses. Anyway, one of those. Against Nick Diaz. Diaz has been a pain in the ass for UFC Prez Dana White. He's publicly stated that. A lot of people think Diaz can beat George. At first I was, but I've been going back and watching some of their fights, and George St-Pierre is going to take Nick Diaz down. George St-Pierre is not stupid. GSP is going to take him down and round and pound him. Diaz says, okay, you know what? Fine. Take me to the ground. I got jiu-jitsu. I can out-submit you. I can do this, this, and this. And they showed highlights. And I'm saying all this on a countdown show. UFC 158 countdown. Problem with that is George St-Pierre is probably better on the ground than Nick Diaz. Not necessarily jiu-jitsu, but just everything. He can out-wrestle you. He can out-jiu-jitsu you. Submissions, no. But round and pound, it's pretty hard to do to pull a submission out of your ass when you get punches, elbows, forearms to your face over and over and over. And GSP is a little bit bigger than Diaz. He definitely got muscle. You know he cuts a bunch of weight. I haven't pulled up I haven't posted the weigh-ins yet on MMAnews.weeble.com. I need to do that. Everyone thinks Nick Diaz is going to get it done. And honestly, I just want this to be a good fight because I really do think George St-Pierre will out-fight him. Not necessarily, I shouldn't put out-fight him, out-MMA him, and the sense of he's just going to outwork him. If they stand, I definitely give it to Nick Diaz. Diaz is an awesome, awesome boxer, and he could do boxing. If he does the whole, what he did in Carlos Condit, where Condit did back up and up and up and up, and he wouldn't really stand there and bang, and I still think Diaz won that fight. But if George does that, then George will win. But if he stands there and fights with Nick Diaz on the ground, Diaz will get it done. I'm not necessarily saying there's going to be a finish in this fight, unfortunately. One thing about GSP, it's kind of a love-hate relationship. He's a good fighter, but he never gets the finishes. A lot of fights have been just decisions, and that's one criticism that George St-Pierre gets. We'll see how it gets done today, y'all. I do think it'll go to the distance. I think George St-Pierre will take him down over and over and over, and we'll get a elbow, forearm, and punch to the face fest for Mr. Diaz. It goes to decision, unanimous decision, all the way. MMAnews1.will.com, alternativenewstalk.will.com/UFC coverage. YouTube, Spreakers, Twitter, Facebook, we will be doing it all. New system tonight, very excited about that. Hit me up on Twitter, and we can interact during the show. Then we'll be back here on Spreaker, back here on YouTube for the review show. Y'all have a great Saturday. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you next time. UFC 158, St-Pierre versus Diaz Preview.